On the morning of May 7th, 1915, the Atlantic Ocean lay calm beneath a pale sky. The waves rolled gently, reflecting the soft light of the sun, as if unaware that history was about to fracture upon its surface. The RMS Lusitania cut through the water with elegance and confidence. She was not merely a ship, she was a symbol, a marvel of engineering, speed, and luxury. To many aboard she represented safety itself. Fast enough to outrun danger, civilian enough to be untouchable, and famous enough to be protected by international law. Nearly 2,000 souls were aboard her that morning. They were families, children, artists, businessmen, immigrants, lovers, and dreamers. People who believed the sea was only a passage, not a grave. They were wrong. A floating world. On the upper decks, first-class passengers strolled beneath the open sky. Women in long coats leaned against the railings, watching the horizon stretch endlessly ahead. Gentle laughter floated through the air, carried by the wind and the steady hum of the ship's engines. Inside, the Lusitania felt like a city at sea. Dining rooms buzzed with conversation. Crystal glasses clinked. Linen tablecloths lay perfectly pressed. The scent of fresh bread and hot tea drifted through the corridors. Among the passengers was Eleanor Whitfield, a young British woman traveling with her 2 children. Her husband had gone ahead to New York for work, and she was eager to reunite their family. She held her son's hand tightly as they explored the ship, marveling at its size. "Mama," her daughter whispered, eyes wide, "is this the biggest ship in the world?" Eleanor smiled. "It feels like it, doesn't it?" Nearby, Thomas Doyle, an Irish immigrant, leaned over the railing on the lower deck. This voyage was his chance at a new life. America waited on the other side of the ocean: jobs, opportunity, escape from hunger and war. He had never seen a ship like this, never imagined such comfort could exist on water. For him, the Lusitania was not just transportation, it was hope. World War I had been raging for nearly a year. Europe was bleeding. Trenches stretched across France. Empires clashed. Millions were already dead. The ocean, once neutral, had become a battlefield of its own. German U-boats prowled the Atlantic, targeting enemy supply ships. Britain, in response, used civilian liners to transport materials, blurring the line between military and non-military targets. The Lusitania was officially a civilian passenger ship, but whispers followed her. Some claimed she carried ammunition. Others dismissed it as propaganda. Most passengers chose not to think about it at all. After all, the ship was fast, and attacking civilians was unthinkable. A war crime against every rule of warfare. At least that's what people believed. The warning. Few passengers noticed the newspaper advertisement printed days earlier in New York papers. Travelers intending to embark on the Atlantic voyage are reminded that a state of war exists between Germany and Great Britain. A warning, quiet, easily ignored. Most assumed it was psychological warfare. Fear tactics. Surely no nation would sink a passenger ship. Surely not. Life continues on board. Children played games on deck. Musicians rehearsed for evening performances. Passengers discussed politics, art, and the future. In the dining room, Alfred Vanderbilt, one of the wealthiest men aboard, calmly sipped his tea. Status, wealth, and reputation created an illusion of immunity. War was something that happened elsewhere, to other people. Crew members went about their duties, trained and professional. Captain William Turner stood on the bridge, alert but confident. He had been warned of submarines near the Irish coast, but he trusted the Lusitania's speed. The ship slowed slightly due to fog. No one panicked. No alarms sounded. The sea remained deceptively peaceful. The coast of Ireland. By early afternoon, the Irish coastline appeared in the distance. Land meant safety. Passengers gathered at the rails, pointing toward the green hills barely visible through the haze. Others would continue on. The worst was behind them, or so they thought. Below the surface of the water, far from laughter and sunlight, something moved. Silent, patient, watching. The German submarine U-20 lurked beneath the waves. Its captain had orders. The rules had changed. Total war demanded total measures. Through the periscope, the Lusitania appeared enormous, clearly civilian, clearly full of people. The decision was made. History tilted. Moments before, on deck, Eleanor lifted her daughter so she could see the land more clearly. Thomas Doyle folded a letter in his pocket, one he planned to send once he arrived in New York. A steward adjusted chairs. A bell rang. A laugh echoed. No one screamed. No one ran. The ocean remained calm. The moment arrived without warning. No siren, no explosion of thunder, no chance to understand. At 2:10 p.m., a single torpedo struck the starboard side of the Lusitania. The impact. Those on deck felt it first, not as sound but as force. A violent shudder ran through the ship, as though the ocean itself had clenched its fist and struck steel. Plates buckled, furniture slid, cups shattered. For a heartbeat there was silence. Then came confusion. Eleanor Whitfield felt the deck tilt beneath her feet. Her daughter screamed, as Eleanor pulled both children into her arms. Around them passengers froze, eyes wide, minds struggling to understand what had just happened. Was that an accident? Someone asked. Below decks, the torpedo had torn into the ship's hull. Water surged inward with unstoppable speed, flooding compartments in seconds. The Lusitania's design, once praised for its elegance, now betrayed her. Internal bulkheads failed to contain the flooding. A second internal explosion followed, smaller, deadlier. Panic bloomed. Chaos on deck. Shouts filled the air. Life jackets! To the boats! We've been hit! Crew members ran, struggling to maintain order. Some passengers moved instinctively, others stood paralyzed by fear. The ship began to list sharply to one side, making movement difficult. Lifeboats, symbols of safety, became traps. As they were lowered, several smashed against the ship's side or spilled their occupants into the sea. Ropes tangled. The list grew worse with every passing second. The Lusitania was sinking far faster than anyone believed possible. A mother's choice. Eleanor clutched her children as water washed across the deck. Her mind screamed one truth above all others: protect them. A steward forced a life jacket into her hands. She struggled to fasten it onto her son while her daughter cried uncontrollably. "Mama, I'm scared." "I know," Eleanor whispered, voice breaking. "Hold on to me. Do not let go." They reached a lifeboat, but it was already descending, dangerously tilted. People screamed as it struck the water wrong, throwing bodies into the sea. There was no second chance. Eleanor turned toward the railing. The ocean below was no longer calm. It was crowded with people. Below the surface, Thomas Doyle had been thrown to the floor when the torpedo struck. Water rushed in so fast there was no time to think. He ran up stairwells already filling, past others doing the same. He reached the deck just as the ship tilted violently. The horizon was wrong, the sky slanted, the sea felt close. He grabbed a life jacket, hands shaking, and looked back once, toward the ship that had promised him a future. Now it was stealing it. The final minutes, from impact to disappearance, only 18 minutes passed. 18 minutes for 1,959 people to accept the impossible. 18 minutes to survive, or not. The Lusitania's bow dipped low. Smoke poured from her funnels. Water roared through corridors where children had played hours earlier. Captain Turner stood on the bridge until the very end, trying to steer the doomed ship toward shore, toward land that remained just out of reach. Passengers leapt into the sea. Some clung to wreckage. Others vanished beneath the waves. There was no heroism in the traditional sense, only desperation, only instinct, only humanity exposed in its rawest form. The ocean filled with cries, calls for help, names shouted into the wind, prayers whispered and screamed. The cold Atlantic stole strength quickly. Heavy clothing dragged people down. Life jackets, poorly designed, sometimes forced wearers face down into the water. Survivors later spoke of hands reaching for them, of voices fading, of silence replacing sound one by one. Thomas found himself clinging to debris, lungs burning, arms numb. Around him, people struggled, some slipping beneath the surface without a sound. He did not look back. He could not. Eleanor reached the water with her children still in her arms. The shock stole her breath. She fought the current, fought panic, fought exhaustion. Her daughter's grip weakened. "Mama," the sea answered before Eleanor could. When rescue boats finally arrived, they found Eleanor alone. Her arms were empty. Rescue and aftermath. Fishing boats and small vessels from the Irish coast rushed to the scene, but time had already decided the outcome. The Lusitania was gone. In her place, wreckage, oil, and survivors drifting among the dead. Of the nearly 2,000 aboard, 1,198 people were killed. Among them, 128 Americans, hundreds of women, scores of children, civilians, non-combatants, people who had believed the rules of war still mattered. The world reacts. News of the sinking spread like fire. Headlines screamed outrage. Photographs of victims filled newspapers. Public opinion shifted overnight. Passenger ship be attacked. How could civilians be targeted without warning? Germany defended the attack, citing wartime necessity. Britain emphasized innocence and loss. The world watched and judged. For the United States, still officially neutral, the Lusitania became a symbol, not just of tragedy, but of moral violation. War crime or warfare? The sinking of the Lusitania forced an uncomfortable question. When does war stop being war and become crime? International law had long protected civilians. Passenger ships were meant to be off limits. Yet modern warfare blurred every boundary. The Lusitania carried people. She may have carried supplies, but she carried children. History would debate the legality for decades, but for the dead, legality meant nothing. Legacy. But she changed it. She shifted public opinion. She hardened attitudes. She helped pave the road toward America's eventual entry into the war. More importantly, she left behind stories. Stories of people who boarded a ship believing they were safe. Stories of a world learning, too late, that technology had outpaced morality. Stories of civilians caught between nations that no longer saw them. Epilogue. Beneath the waves. Today the Lusitania rests on the ocean floor. Silent, broken, unmoving, but she is not forgotten. She remains a warning, etched not in stone, but in memory. A reminder that when war ignores humanity, the sea remembers everything.